everyone. This is Zach Edwards with another episode of the Adventure Box podcast, and we've got a lot to talk about. Today, we're going to be talking about the land of Africa. That's right. We are talking about a land that is very far away from us, but had so much significance in this country and all other countries. And I'm not talking actually slavery. I'm talking about everything else. We will talk about slavery, but we're going to talk about the cradle of civilization, the cradle of humanoid existence. We will also talk about the fact that this is still a theory and not 100% fact. So we cannot actually tell what is completely fact and what is still theory, because there's so many different questions that are still plaguing us from the land of Africa. The same thing was going on when we were talking about ancient American history, which is why we focused there first, because we wanted you to see that there are not straightforward answers of what was happening in the ancient world. Why is that? Because no one was there. I wasn't there. You weren't there. The archaeologists weren't there. The historians weren't there. And I say the historians especially because those writings that are said that they are basically written back then, there was no written language during that time. So you could not actually take down the history of that place. So we are going to talk about Africa the best way we can, which is from the best archaeological findings that we can find. So as I told you before, this is Tuesdays and Thursdays. We will be talking about ancient civilizations. Mondays and Tuesdays, we will be talking about American history. So, going forward, ancient Africa is one of the most mysterious places, and for so many different reasons, including the fact that, well, you know what? Seriously, we don't have all the information about this period of time. Now, what we've assumed through our theories is that life in the humanoid sense started during the Paleolithic Era, about 300,000 BC, till around 10,000 BC. That was the Paleolithic Era, which is a pivotal moment in humankind, because this is when we basically went from Neanderthal to Stone Age. Now, if you are people of faith, I wouldn't say throw this to the side. I would say be able to understand where the theory is and be able to add what your thoughts are as well. Because again, everything is theory and we are trying to put them together. So whether you're people of faith, don't throw this out. Now, at the same time, we're going to be talking about things of faith and things that have been recorded in different scriptures, whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Torah. Well, Torah being the first 5 books of Moses. But we're going to be adding that into history as we try to find the most valuable and the most reliable information that we can get. So this is why we have to be able to establish this beforehand. We're establishing the fact that we don't know everything, which is okay. We do not need to know everything. But what we are striving to do is to make sure that we have all the information possible so that we can give you the information about this mysterious land we call Africa. Now, I have a friend that's going to be coming on to this podcast. He's actually from Kenya. Now, Kenya is on the east coast of Africa, right next to Somalia and Tanzania. Now, one thing that's so important to understand when it comes to him is he actually has the way that Africa is taught in Africa. Now, a lot of people like to say, especially those in Africa, when the Europeans came down or the people from the Middle East came over, they distorted what was happening in Africa. The Middle East, Europe, they have a high prestige for themselves and yet a low prestige for other people. And so people in Africa, even though they were actually some of the most advanced civilizations at that time, were actually downplayed by those other civilizations that conquered or lived there or worked with them. And so we're going to go through all these things. We're also going to go through the origins of slavery. It's a hot topic in the United States, especially today, with the division that we've created. Now, here's the thing. If you learn about history, you can learn, one, that slavery is evil, but two, that it's very misunderstood. And so we can actually understand what it is. And let me just say firsthand, there is no good things. There's no good that is in slavery. Slavery is bad for the original society. Slavery is evil. But you have to be able to understand that every civilization in history, whether you're in Africa, Asia, Middle East, Europe, and over in the Americas, they all had a form of slavery. Now, there is different slavery depending on the region that you're from, and there's different things that, but we're going to come, I'm going off on that, and I'm not going to. We're going to stick on topic. The thing to understand about this is we're going to be talking about a lot of things when it comes to Africa, but there's one thing we're not going to be talking about right now. This month, we are not going to be talking about Egypt and all of the civilizations right around Egypt. So those in Sudan, those in Ethiopia. Now, we're going to mention them, but we're not going to talk about them until we talk about Egyptian history, because they played a pivotal role in Egyptian history. And the best way to explain Egyptian history is to explain that whole region: Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, and so forth. So we're going to talk about all those different parts and how they actually come together. Now, with Egypt, we're also going to be talking about Israel, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and the Middle East as well. So we've got a large compilation of different areas all in this next month. So stay tuned for that. But when it comes to Africa, let's go to some of the things that we do know and that are important to talk about. Let's start off with some of the ancient, like very ancient human existence. Before there was writing, before there were any kind of recordings, except what was carved into or painted onto stone. Because if you put it into wood, what happens to wood? It rots, it degrades, it falls apart. And all the records do too. If it's placed on stone, it had a higher chance of existing. And so on stone, you will find hunters hunting different animals. You'll find different animals on there. You'll find different types of people on there. You'll find a lot of different objects. And this is actually where the beginning of writing started. Now, a lot of people like to say, well, there was no alphabet during that time. That's true. There was storytelling. And there is two different types of storytelling. One that you wrote down and one that you did not write down. And if you did not write it down, there was no understanding if it was actually going to survive. Because oral history is not that, is not very well put together and solidified, because every time you tell a story, have you ever played telephone? If you play telephone, you're going to tell somebody else. Then they're going to tell someone else. And it gets distorted over time. Carve it into rock, and it doesn't. So we're going to be talking about all different ancient civilizations in their carvings, in their paintings, in their artwork. We're going to talk about the different tribes that were there. Not just those that you see in the bush. We're going to be talking about those outside of Egypt. We're going to be talking about the Romans and how they came in. The Greeks, how they had influence. We're going to talk about the Mali Empire and the west coast of Africa. So all these things are so important to understand. But I'm not going to tell you any more because I'm going to have you hold off until Thursday. And that's where we're going to start going into the ancient part of history. Now, there's a lot to talk about. And we're going to try to boil it down to 2 days every week. So let's see how we do. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will catch you next. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.